Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We're on episode 17 of Run with the Wind, and I've thought about this episode. At the end of episode 16, I thought about it because, I'll be honest, in the reaction I was like, twins, what are we doing? Like, why are we having this moment? But the more I thought about it, the more it makes sense that narratively this is where it's happening. So I'm not happy that the twins are suddenly coming to this realization of, why are we running if we're not going to win? But I thought about it and I was like, okay, now wait. We don't know the twins' backstory. They're one of the few characters of the 10 that we've been with that we don't know a lot about. And so I was thinking maybe this episode we're going to finally get some backstory on the twins. Maybe this ties into them playing soccer, and maybe they had a similar situation happen during their soccer career, and that's fostered this view of it. And, you know, they're the twins, and they're kind of happy-go-lucky and goofy, and maybe they're just now realizing that Haiji's maybe been stringing them along this whole time. But I also thought that narratively, this is a perfect moment for this situation to happen, because we've done the qualifier, we've made the top 10 teams, we're going to the Ekiden, and this is the final cementing of Kakeru's transition and change in character development. Because the question that the twins asked at the end of last chapter ties back, last episode, ties back to the very beginning of this show, 14 episodes ago, way back in episode 3, when the twins were like, Kakeru, what's your deal? Why do you want to run? Or why are you running? When Kakeru was like, it's pointless, we shouldn't even try to do this again. And now the tables have turned, and Kakeru has spent this whole series developing as a character into this new competitor, this new teammate, and in a lot of respects, this new person. He's gained this new confidence in himself. He's able to communicate so much better. He's able to be a leader, to be a team player, and to be a competitor in a healthy way. And it's not something that's happened overnight. The one thing I love about the show is that it's very clear that this has happened over several months. Like the passage of time has been well done in this series. And so I feel like the only thing left is for Kakeru to come back to that question of, why are we running? Why should we do this? And if we're about to do this giant race at the end of the series to wrap everything up, we need to go back to that question. And Haiji didn't have the answer for him when he asked Haiji. So I feel like the twins having this moment of hesitation is going to lead Kakeru to answer that question maybe for himself. Now, whether he shares that with Haiji, I don't know, but him being able to give the twins an answer of, okay, this is why we're going to do this. Because honestly, is our ragtag group of underdogs going to win the Hakone? No, I don't think so at all. I mean, you've got Fujioka's team and like all that. They're probably going to win. They've won the last 3 years. But I don't think that's the goal. I think that Haiji probably is going to be like, let's get in the top 10. And that's a much more realistic goal for these guys. But also I thought about this too. Haiji has this personal dream of wanting to do the Hakone, the Ekiden, and he's had this for the last 4 years, and so it's something very dear to him. But I was also thinking in the last episode when Haiji shows all these characteristics of a coach, Haiji is a 4th year, so he's leaving after this year. And Yuki's leaving, and I think King is leaving. If King's not leaving, he's a 3rd year, so it'll be his last year next year. And I thought about this, but I'm kind of watching Free at the same time, and there's the dilemma in Free of what happens when our 3rd years graduate high school and the team has to carry on. That's kind of what I'm thinking is happening here. Haiji's like, I want this team to carry on. I want the track and field club to keep going after I'm gone. So he's got these 10 guys on board, and so he's probably thinking if we do really good in the Hakone, then that's going to attract people to our university, to our track and field club team, and the team's going to keep on going and striving to get better year after year. So it's kind of like Hana was convinced back in episode 13. She was like, I want to go to Kansai University just from her being around these guys. So if they do well in the Hakone Ekiden, not only is it going to be good for the team members, but when Haiji and Yuki are gone, then these other teammates are going to be able to come back next year and get new recruits and keep developing as a team. And I could definitely see, based on how Kakeru's characters developed this season, maybe Kakeru becoming the team captain as a 2nd year in college. That would be really cool. So I'm seeing all these like seeds laying out. So while I think that the twins are being a little bit ridiculous, being stubborn at this point in the series, it's like, come on guys, you just qualified. Why are you having doubts now? I can understand their nerves, They're nervous about this big event. They still got to train a couple months for it, or at least a couple weeks. And so I can see the nervousness, and I can see that maybe we don't know the full story with the twins, and that their background in soccer has had similar moments where they're now starting to doubt and question themselves. So I'm going to give the twins the benefit of the doubt, even though I think it's a little contriving in the plot, but I also feel like it's necessary for the plot because we got to go back to this question of why are we running? And Kakeru needs to answer it because he's been our main protagonist and our one that's had the most character growth throughout the show. So it's clear that he needs to be the one to answer the question. So I get why they're doing it. I get why the show is doing it. I'm okay with it. I just want this to be like a one episode thing and the twins get over their funk because I'm like, guys, we got a big race coming up and we want to do good. But last couple episodes have been so good. So good. Ever since episode 13, it's just been like an emotional, just like so tense and just gut punching you with emotion that I don't want needless drama. That's the one thing I've loved about this show is that there's no petty, pointless drama. And at the end of last episode, I'm like, twins, I know you just graduated high school. I know high school's filled with needless drama, but let's not bring it into the college scene. So, in any case, that's enough of me rambling. I hope you all enjoy this reaction. We're going to start episode 17 of Run with the Wind, In Search of an Answer. And I will go ahead and say this. I'm watching this series through High Dive, and then I go back and watch through Crunchyroll afterwards. The previews in High Dive, I appreciate much more because they don't spoil anything. Like, the preview for this answer is that all the previews in High Dive are like questions or colloquialisms. They're like, it's one thing to qualify, but an entirely different thing to actually win. The twins point out that their victory is impossible with their current times, so why try? And that's it. That's the preview. And I'm like, cool. That gives me no answers to what's going to happen this episode. Whereas when I go back and watch it on Crunchyroll, and I'll read the previews on Crunchyroll, they basically tell you what's going to happen in the episode. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad I'm watching it here first, so I'm not spoiled on anything. So kudos to you, High Dive, for not spoiling reactors on what they're about to watch. But I do like the Crunchyroll translation as well. So there's that. But anyway, we're going to start this episode here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Oh, buddy. Okay. No big deal. It's just this whole race might be starting next episode on episode 18, which means episode 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 6 episodes of this series are going to be this one race. Or maybe 5 episodes is going to be the whole race, and then next episode is going to be them getting ready for it. Oh my gosh, y'all. This episode was very, very low-key. When we left episode 16, I thought this episode was going to be a bunch of melodramatic garbage with these twins, but it really wasn't. It was resolved, like, within the first half, which I'm glad, I'm grateful. And I'm glad that while Kakeru couldn't directly answer the question of why are we running, he is self-aware that he needs to answer that question. And I really like that. I like that Kakeru is still, he's like Haiji. He's actively trying to work out an answer. And that goes with what the title of the episode is, to find an answer. And I like that the twins, they weren't as melodramatic and ridiculous as they could have been. And I'm glad that they realized after talking in that breakfast conversation, because Shindo and them bring up a good point. They're like, we beat out 39 teams in our section to qualify. If we don't go to the Hakone, those 39 teams, how are they going to feel? We will have basically stolen a spot from them that they can't get. So it's like, you kind of need to go. But that's such a good, I love the character development that we run in. Sakaki, I like that they're like, Sakaki's got this red string of fate of just stalking us around. He won't leave us alone. And I like that Kakeru matured enough. He didn't lash out. He didn't say anything. But Sakaki, man, he's a character that can just stick the knife in and just dig it in. And he really aimed at Haiji, being like, it's your 4th year. What are you going to do now that you're going to be gone next year? And it's like, dude, leave him alone. But I like that Haiji points out, he's like, Sakaki is his reasoning is just based on what his views of competition are, that you're training around this athletic team that is very competent and well known, so your view of competition is much different than Kansai's. And I like this episode is it's subtly building up that I think next episode we're going to finally get some backstory with Haiji. That's what I'm thinking it's going, because we've really got this last race left. We're in the last fourth of the season. And Fujioka, looking all dapper with his coat and skinny jeans and tie, like just being dapper as always, runs into them conveniently. And he's the one that has the most past with Haiji. So I feel like he's going to be talking to Kakeru and Musa, or maybe just Kakeru, about Haiji's past and how he knows him, or what he knows of him. And I like that Haiji conveniently sneaks out to go to this orthopedic surgeon. And it's like, oh, dude. That doesn't sound good, because it sounds like his knee's going to be a big problem and we're about to do this giant race. And it's like, dude, and you were doing so well. Like the physical therapist was like, oh, your training's really been helpful, but that qualifier race, I wonder if he's just done something to put it out of whack again. And I like that Haiji's so no fuss and he doesn't want to worry the team, so he just goes off by himself to do this. It's also kind of weird. I know Haiji's a fourth year at university, but we've not heard anything about his family. And he's made comments about other people in their family. Like he commented to Shindo's family watching the race. He's commented about King and his family and other people, but we've not heard anything about Haiji's past or his family. So I'm really curious if next episode, before we go into this big race, if we're going to finally get... Because it seemed like Haiji was very frustrated that he didn't have an answer to give the twins either, just like Kakeru. And it's like, dude. It's like, man. I'm glad that this series has enough maturity that it didn't go into a bunch of needless drama. It was just like Kakeru's like, Kakeru running after them on the field was such a Haiji moment that I'm like, dude, you've grown so much, and Haiji's influenced you so much, because that was a Haiji move for sure. That was demon-senpai. And it does kind of hint, I said before the episode started, I was like, I wonder if they're going to use this race to get followers for next year, and they already had 2 people show up. So I'm like, even though Sakaki's like, what are you going to do about running next year? It's like, really? Yuki and Haiji are the only ones leaving? So they already had 2 guys show up to replace. So if they do well, at least, place decent in this final race, that could attract enough attention to get racers to come and join their team. So I feel like that's going to be okay. They're going to be okay there. And them deciding who's going to... I like that in this episode, they went through each leg of the race, like who's going to start each race and who's going to... And it kind of maybe foreshadowed a little bit. Like at the very beginning, I said last episode, I'm like, it would make sense for Prince to start out the race because Prince is the slowest and you can just go from there and you can build. So I would imagine you'd want Haiji and Kakeru to end the race because they're your fastest runners. Well, Kakeru is. I don't know about Haiji at this point. But Kakeru is definitely your fastest runner, so you'd want him to kind of round out the race. So when he was talking about Fujioka being in the second leg, I'm like, but I don't know if you want to use Kakeru that early. I figured you'd want to save him for later and use him later to round out the race. But I could see Prince looking over the balcony at the beginning, like he was imagining running in that spot. And Haiji makes the point of saying to start out the race, you have to be somebody with fortitude. And it's like... But Prince has worked so hard, and he's gained that internal strength. He'd be great to start out the race. And then when they talk about going uphill, they need somebody with like a low center of gravity that has intellect and courage. And I'm like, that's Shindo. And Shindo was looking out the window right when he said that. And I was like, oh, I could see the pieces coming together of who was going to run what part. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. This race is going to be insane. Like just seeing the course and how long it is, and I can definitely see why it takes 2 days to complete it now, because that's such a huge undertaking. And just they built up the qualifier being a big race, but this is like on another level, and there's only 21 runners at a time, so it's like what it's gonna be insane. Or at least it seemed like, I think they said 21 runners at a time. So I'm assuming Fujioka's team was in a different section that placed and advanced to here. So, oh my gosh. This episode was such a good hype to get us excited about what this race is going to be like. Y'all. And oh my goodness. So cool. So cool. But yeah. And then finally the twins and Hannah. I don't know which twin it was wearing the light blue. I can't recall, but I think Hannah likes the one that is in the light blue. Because he was the one that started complimenting her first, and then the other twin was like, "Oh yeah." So, and she was like about to cry because she was like so happy. I'm like, I don't want that to throw a wrench into things right before this race, because these twins are kind of like, they're still high school kids kind of. They've just graduated, so there's still some of that high school angst in there. But man, the show has not missed since episode 7. The show has not missed for me. Like every I'll be honest, episodes 5 and 6 are probably my least favorite in the series at this point. Not because I don't like King. I like King's character a lot, but I feel like King's plight was very angsty, and it makes sense. I'm not going to complain about it, but they're my least favorite episodes of the season. But since episode 7, I cannot complain about the show. Like it's just hit nonstop. And this has such been a quiet build up to a climax, but it's been so tense, and you can feel the tension in the air. And it's just this slow build. It's like a slow burn. It's just slowly building up to this final race. And I have a feeling this final race is not going to be like one of those 2-parter. It's going to be like a 5-part episodic thing. And I'm so excited. I'm so ready for it. I have a feeling these last several reactions are going to be long, because I'm just going to be gushing and talking about things that are happening. Musa's character, oh my gosh. And Musa, I love him and Kakeru have this show just giving all these characters various interactions in the most subtle and organic way, showing these characters interacting with one another, just walking through the streets talking. Musa and Kakeru, they've developed their friendship over the last several episodes, and I was so happy that Kakeru was going to stand up for Musa, but then Musa's like, what are you going to tell him? You know, and it's so sad that because Musa said from the beginning, he's like, don't stereotype me and stop with the prejudice. And you can tell that there's a lot of stereotypes and prejudice with the black runners on these teams that are transfer students, and they particularly single them out and draw attention to them. And those two guys saying like, oh, well, they've got this transfer student. It wouldn't be different if I wish they had an all Japanese team. And it's like, dude, that's so racist and wrong. And I love Musa's character. He's so genuinely sweet and kind-hearted, and like just this soft soul. And I love that he's telling Kakeru, he's like, dude, like he's dealt with it his whole life. He's like, it's fine. What are you going to tell him? Like, just let them think what they want, and we're going to prove them wrong. And Kakeru's like, but we're all just runners. Like, it doesn't matter where we're from. We're all just running in this race. And Musa's like, I know. And it's like, ugh. Oh, y'all. This show. I could gush for a long time. Just saying. But anyway, I feel like I've gushed enough. I am super excited for episode 18 now. I have patiently waited. I have been given crumbs of Haiji this whole series. He's my favorite character in this show. Kakeru's come up there. Kakeru has come up there, especially these last several episodes. But Haiji's still always been my favorite. Like, I've resonated with him so much that I'm like, I need to know things about you, Haiji, to help fill in the gaps. And I have a feeling that Fujioka is going to give us some of those, and maybe we're going to get some of those next episode. I hope. I feel like we need to fill in the gaps before this giant race, so that we can go into the race without any questions. So, but anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Stay safe, take care, and yeah, next week, episode 18. Which is, and then morning. The morning of the race. Crap. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back soon with more Run with the Wind. Bye.